to be able to address this aspect?
This is a key question, Rahul, and I'm frankly grappling with the answer to this at this point in time, because, you know, on one hand, the extra outlay on capex is good, because some part of this capex, like highways and construction and the Awas Yojana, the housing projects, these require labor almost immediately, and they can soak up quite a bit of casual labor and provide some kind of employment. So there will be some employment in some part of the capex spend. But you know, you guys were talking about earlier whether in an election year there could have been or would have been some kind of populism. And if ever one would have supported some kind of populism, it would have been this year, because you know it was required this year. So it's a little disappointing and disconcerting to see the scale back in NREGS spends or outlays, the scale back or the stabilization of food subsidies, because I don't think we are there yet in terms of an economy. The bottom end is hurting so much. There is one thing to talk about dialing back RevX, but if you're doing it too soon, then you're probably widening the inequality. The K is going to widen, because at the top end, corporate earnings will grow and the stock market might follow, and therefore earnings will grow at the top. At the bottom, you're removing income support, you're not increasing outlays on many of these welfare schemes, and therefore people will be poorer off. So to answer your question, I think the inequality after this budget is an open question. It may even have grown.
Siddharth, your initial thoughts
Shamika,
on
is a better person to
okay. You have a question for Shamika? Go ahead.
On this as well. No, on this very question on whether she thinks enough has been done at the bottom end of the pyramid, much that there is a lot to be liked about the capex aspect.
Yeah. No, Udayan, I've been following. I think you asked this question a little while back, and Mr. Garg answered it. Frankly, the way you're looking at it, which is the way I think we do as economists, we look at capex and revex, except that when it comes to something like the NREGA or the PM Awas Yojana, these are two very large schemes. And while one falls under capex, the other is really, livelihood support in the form of it's a revex. It would be nice to see the detail, and I think this is one of those gaps. I would have really liked for her to address that, what is happening vis-a-vis NREGS. I know that the economic survey says there's no, NREGS demand is what it is. But I think frankly, what NREGS did for UPA 1 and 2 in terms of popularity, and I have several research papers that show that it had direct impact on poverty across India. I think PM Awas Yojana, while it is capex, but it is having a similar impact on households. But I don't know what the outlay is. I haven't seen the details of the budget yet, and I'd like to see some of that detail. Yeah.
Okay, we want to introduce to this coverage now Sunil Kant Munjal, who joins us on this broadcast. It seems as a long-time tracker of union budgets, Mr. Munjal, Nirmala Sitharaman preferring to be steady, to be predictable, rather than doing something bold, big and dramatic and shaking the boat.
So in a sense, I saw three things in this round. One was the big focus on capital spend, the largest ever increase, at least that I know of, in a year-to-year upping the capex numbers. The challenge, of course, will be creating capacity for efficient execution of these projects and focusing on the outcome. The second one was the interesting focus on digitization in many, many aspects, whether it's a drone policy or the healthcare platform or the Bharat Stag or the registration, common registration across the country. I think these are things, they are little independent things, but when you see the collective impact, it can be quite a big benefit overall for ease of living, ease of use, ease of business, etc. And the third, I think, was this focus on ensuring that the entire logistics chain actually becomes more efficient, because there is a massive multiplier effect. As you know, there are 2 or 3 sectors like the automotive industry, like the real estate, house building, like healthcare, and textile industry, which have a large multiplier on the economy and especially on job creation. Our big challenge still continues to be creating sustainable jobs with sufficient incomes to ensure standard of living of complete families. And I think in a secondary manner, it will happen with this big spend. But some of it, if it was focused directly, potentially could have done better, even introducing a parallel to the rural scheme for the urban poor. I think we could potentially do well with that. A large section of population in the urban areas are still poor. I do like that they're focusing more and more on India becoming more competent, including innovation, R&D for defense, etc., both for small industry, for startups, working with DRDO, etc. So, I mean, it's not, of course, time to go into minor individual line item details. But overall, I think directionally very good. The challenge, of course, will remain of execution because we've had to scale down even our own targets for monetization as also divestments repeatedly, including for this year and a lower number for next year.
Okay, Udayan has a question for you. Udayan, go ahead.
Yeah, Sunil, I wanted to ask, having seen this budget, what does it mean for consumption demand from B and C cities, semi-urban areas, even rural areas? Because you deal with these areas. Do you think it will give any kind of fillip, or do you see in the second half of the year demand actually fizzling out in non-urban India as we go forward?
So that's actually, you've touched on a very important area. That's one of the challenges which I was trying to figure out because I've not gone into the full budget document. I've only heard the speech. So it's not clear to me what has been done for specifically because a large section of population in rural areas has suffered, especially in the last 2 years during the COVID time, and more specifically in the last 2 or 3 quarters. We've seen that. And that is a real risk. So I am hoping that the focus on the spend which will happen on infrastructure, etc., on water, will percolate down to the rural areas and provide the support there because, as you were just saying, infra projects have the benefit of creating jobs right away, even in the short term. But I'm not clear on this, so I don't have a real answer for you. As I said, the challenge is execution. I hope a fair amount of this execution will actually happen in the rural areas to provide that direct booster to incomes.
See that, now this is one of the critical questions. The government